Hi, this is Misconception, and I'll be going over the next Meet the Masters artist. His name is Fredrick Remington. He lived between 1861 and 1909, and he is an American artist. His art elements are realistic or realism, and that's a concept you'll be going over with your students. And the media we'll be using is marker and chalk. There's a few vocabulary words that you should go over with your students. Some of them are realistic, landscape, background, foreground, horizon line, and plateau. Along with this video, you'll have a PowerPoint that shows some of his work. I use that to introduce my students to his artwork and have them have a quick discussion about what they noticed. They should notice that there's a lot of sceneries with cowboys, Native Americans, deserts, horses, and they look like a picture, which is why it's called realistic. So let's start by going over what is in your box. You'll find a stack of black paper, a stack of brown paper, some black pens, and chalk. You will also need some scissors for your students, as well as glue sticks. Okay? So this art project can actually be done horizontal or vertical. I decided to make this one vertical just because I have not had a lot of vertical artwork this year, and I wanted to change it up. The first thing I had my students do was write their name on the back of a black piece of paper, and then they're going to set this aside. In your box, you will also see a handout that looks like this. You do not need to make copies for all your students. I didn't this time. I actually just displayed this on the board for them to reference. But it's up to you if you want to make all the copies. I just gave them a little sheet of paper, half sheet of paper, for them to draw their cactus in. Okay? So the first step is actually drawing the cactus. I showed them this handout using the my iPad and the Apple TV. And I showed them the different types of cactus they can draw. I drew the most simple one, and then I added details. It's really important to have the details because this is realistic art, and realistic art looks like a picture. So I did this ahead of time really quickly, and this is what their cactus should look like. I emphasize that it should be pretty big. It doesn't need to be as big as a whole paper, but taking up the majority of it. So I would ask them, what colors do you see in cactus? And I see a lot of different shades of green. I would probably go over that chalk is very messy and that it is, they don't really need to press very hard for the colors to show. They're going to be using the side of the chalk to shade. Okay? And it's not really important for them to stay in the lines because they'll be cutting this out. Okay? So I added some light green, maybe a little darker shade. Okay, you can also tell them that chalk is very easy to blend, so they can use their fingers or a Q-tip if you have them to blend the colors. Okay, and when they're happy with how it looks, like I am right now, you can have them set it aside. Okay, so they would put that aside, and then we're going to start with the landscape. So while they're looking at the examples of Remington's artwork, you would want them to pay attention to the colors they noticed in the desert. Remington used a lot of warm colors. He also had little shades of purple and blue in there, kind of like sunset colors. So those are the colors I would want to use. So I'm getting yellow, red, orange, maybe some blue. Actually, I'll use purple and brown. Okay? And my students shared the chalk. I noticed there wasn't enough for everyone to have their own bag, but that's okay. Sharing is totally fine. Okay? So since mine is vertical, I'm going to be, well, if it's vertical or horizontal, you're still going to be doing streaks of color going from left to right. So we're going to start by drawing, using the side of the chalk and making lines across. Okay. They don't have to be completely straight. If the students want, they can make it kind of look wavy and like hilly. And they can also try to blend the colors if they like. Ooh, that purple is really dark. Okay. And again, emphasize that they don't need to press very hard. I'm not pressing very hard, and I can already see that I'm making a lot of chalk mess on my table. So again, emphasize that it could be very soft, and they can use their fingers to blend the colors if they like. Okay. All right. So I'm happy with the way that looks. When they're happy with it, what you want them to do is to talk about what a plateau is. Because in the desert, they don't have mountains like we usually see or think of where it's a pointed top. It's usually a flat top, which is a plateau. So they're going to start about an inch or two from the top, and they're going to start cutting plateaus. Okay, so they should be, for the most part, doing horizontal and vertical cuts. It could be a little bit of a slope, but make sure that none of their tops are pointed. Okay. Okay. So I made 3 plateaus on the top, and that's going to form my horizon line. Okay. So the horizon line is where the sky and the land meet. And that is what we just created by cutting the plateaus. So when you're done cutting the plateaus, you can actually glue this down on your black paper. And that's when the glue stick comes in. So you just go on the edges, do it really quickly so it doesn't dry. And we're done. Make sure that the corners line up. And you press down. Okay? So once you're done with that, they can cut out their cactus. They should spend their time cutting it out and trying to stay on the line. And this cactus is going to go on their landscape, which they just created with the brown paper. Okay, and it's going to be going in the foreground. So foreground is the front of the picture, like what's closest to the person who's viewing the picture. And you should talk to your students about how things in the foreground are usually bigger than things in the background. Okay, so it kind of creates a perspective. So the cactus, since it is so big, would be in the foreground. Okay, so I am done cutting my cactus. Now again, I'm going to glue it down on my paper. So since it's in the foreground, you want to put it pretty close to the bottom of the page, probably an inch or 2 from the bottom. And you don't want it centered. You want it off to the side. So I'm just going to put it about here and put it down. Okay. And since Remington's work had a lot of details because it was realistic, this is when you get to use a marker to add more details. I displayed this worksheet on the board when the kids were ready to do details so that they can see how to draw rocks and grass and stones on the landscape. So I'll have some examples for you. This is what I did in class, and I just added like the little thorns or spikes and rocks. And remember, you want to mention that if it's in the background far away, they need to get smaller and less details. They can add little hills in the background and things like that. Okay, and here are some more examples. Here's one that had a lot of details. They even cut out the rocks themselves. Here's one that was a little more simple. Another one that was pretty simple. And then my students really loved this one. That had a lot of detail. So yeah, they can look very different, but just the point is that they know that it's realistic and that the foreground is closer and bigger and the background is smaller and less detailed. So if you have any questions about this project, feel free to email me or call me or talk to me during lunch or whatever, okay? Hope this was helpful and hope you enjoy this project with your students. Bye.